what we have here, I'm going to try something completely different. I think completely different, at least pretty different. I want to kind of run a community project on taking a song that was written for the piano or played on the piano, at least no telling exactly how and when they wrote it or what was going through their minds. But taking a piano song and work on a guitar arrangement where we're trying to duplicate or replicate maybe, or at least come close to, creating a similar texture on the guitar as to what we hear on the piano. Now we're going to take a look at, I think this is more of a McCartney tune than a Lennon tune, The Fool on the Hill, that of course appeared on their album. I got to talk about this just a little bit, the album Magical Mystery Tour, because this is back from the days when albums were really cool. They would do stuff like look at here, 24-page full-color booklet included that shows scenes from the movie, which was a TV show done for a special done for British TV. I can't really recommend that you watch it. It's pretty tedious nowadays. But all kinds of cool stuff in here that I haven't looked at in probably 40 years, but it's a little tedious too. But in any case, great pictures. I think this was the finale, Your Mother Should Know finale, with them dancing in the tuxes with roses. Oh, one of the Paul is Dead clues. See that one? Notice the flowers everybody's wearing. Paul is black. Okay. Well, anyway, the premise or the project here is to first of all go listen to the song really carefully and try to decipher just not the chords. I've got the chords for you. You can take a look at those. At what the piano is doing, the texture of what's happening. And many McCartney tunes on the piano are done like this, where he's hitting some bass notes once in a while, typically holding the bass notes for pretty long, a measure or two at a time, playing chords up here with the right hand at either the pace of half notes or possibly quarter notes. So we're gonna do that on the guitar with your thumb playing what the left hand is doing on the piano, meaning the bass notes, and we'll figure that out from the chords, and then your fingers playing the chords, 3-note chords. We're only going to use 3 strings for the chords and 1 string for the bass. The bass notes are going to be on either the 6th, 5th, or 4th strings. Most of them are going to be open. There are only 2 chords that require us to put down to fret a bass note. So we're only going to use partial versions of the chords. A lot of times we'll have a chord down that will not really be strummable. Not going to work, but that might be one of the chord shapes we use later on in the song if we play it like this. Anyway, okay, this is also going to go out in installments, kind of. So you'll have at least a week before I put up the second segment of this, and this is going to turn into 3, 4, 5, 6 segments. I don't know yet. I'm just kind of winging it here. But the first step is going to be to find different ways of voicing the chords and we're really just looking for 3 of the notes of the chord that happen on the top 3 strings. Typically, most of the chords in this song have 4 different notes in them. So the bass note is a note you're not going to want to duplicate on the top 3 strings. The bass note is usually going to be something different. Matter of fact, not until we get to, there are only a couple of chords where the bass note is part of the chord and 3-note chords. That would be the D minor and the B flat with D in the bass. Is that it? Yes. All the other chords have 4 notes in them, and so we want to get the bass note played, the root of the chord, or the slash bass in the case of B flat with D, and the other 3 notes of the chord on the top 3 strings. So one of the first things you have to be able to do is know the chord formulas and what notes you need to put in any particular chord. The song opens up with a D6 chord. The formula for a 6th chord, I'm going to talk about the rest of them later in the next segment. But just to get you started, to play a 6th chord, you could go back and check all my theory lessons and stuff like this, but the formula for a 6th chord is you need a major chord, 1, 3, and 5, with the 6th note of that major scale. So for D6, you can figure out what we need to add, and then we have an E minor chord with D in the bass. So we're going to keep the same bass note. So for the first 2 chords, the D6 and the E minor with D in the bass, we're going to just use the open D string, and then we need to find the other 3 notes of those chords on the top 3 strings. So figure out what those notes are, then look for multiple ways of playing them between open and all the way up to the 12th fret. So we're looking for 3 or even possibly 4 different voicings of each chord. D6, and then E minor. We don't have to worry about the D and the bass. And with the D6, we don't have to worry about the D and the bass, so you need the other 3 notes of a D6 chord played on the top 3 strings, and the 3 notes of an E minor chord played on the top 3 strings. Okay, that's the first part of the project. The next, so we have 2 lines of that, just D6 and E minor with D in the bass, back and forth. Then it goes to E minor 7. Now you might be asking, why would I not call E minor with D in the bass E minor 7? It is E minor 7. But since we have the D in the bass, that takes care of the 7. So if we called it E minor 7 with D in the bass, it might you might try to duplicate notes that you don't really need to. However though, for E minor 7, we now want to have the E in the bass and get the other 3 notes that we need for E minor 7, which are a minor chord, a root, a flatted third, and a fifth, with a 7th, a flatted 7th. I'll go over the rest of the formulas next time because I want you to try to figure out what some of these are without, well, it's like see how much you know first. Okay, so then we have an E minor 7 followed by an A7. We're going to use the open A in the bass for the A7. Back to D6 and then a B minor 7. For that B minor 7 is going to be one of the chords we have to get the B in the bass. I mean fretted in the bass. We're either going to play it on the A string at the 2nd fret or on the 6th string, somewhere else, depending on the voicing you're using for the rest of the B minor 7 chord. Okay, you with me so far? I hope so. Now, I'd really like people to contribute on the forum post where we've announced this, is where you can put in some of your ideas or discoveries, I guess. And the idea here is to don't just give it all away as much as, if you already know exactly how to do this, let some of the rest of the people that this is a challenge for explore, and we'll kind of walk our way through it. I'll kind of guide things as they're going on. Anyway, so the 3rd line, we've got E minor 7 to A7 to D6 and B minor 7, and then E minor 7 to A7 again, and then the song changes keys, or at least has a different, everything so far has been in the key of D. We have only chords from the key of D. And then it lands on a D minor chord instead. And a quick change after 2 beats, a half a measure. The way I've got the chart, each letter or slash is just 2 beats. 2, 3, 4. Something like that. Oh no, everyone's... Yeah, depends on how you want to count them, but you'll be able to figure that out from listening to it. So at the end of the first section, the end of the first 16 measures, we've got a D minor chord and a B flat with D in the bass, which is a very similar chord. Not much has to change. So it's a really subtle change. Coming back to D minor. So it's kind of changed keys. And then we run through some chords in the key of D minor. A B flat chord with D in the bass still. A C7 chord. This is going to be the other chord where we play a fretted bass note. So you're either going to need the C on the 5th string at the 3rd fret, or possibly on the 6th string, depending on which voicing of the C chord you're going to want to use. And again, we're never going to play the 4th, 5th, and 6th strings. We're always only going to play one of them at a time, and everything else is going to stay on the top 3 strings. Okay? Then we have a little run. Then we end up, the song after that C7 comes back to D minor, and there's a little chromatic run that I'm going to talk about much later that leads us up to D minor 7. You might be able to figure that out by ear, and then it lands back on the D6 chord. Okay, hopefully you have a clue now as to what I'm talking about. The song also changes textures later on. When it gets into, there's really only, well, I guess there are 2 parts on this. There's a verse and a chorus. But at one point there's a short little solo played on like a recorder or a flute or something. And the rhythmic feel changes from steady banging of chords or beating of chords here into a little bit more. So we will talk about how to do that. I want to give you an example now of how this might work with some different chords. If I was playing a chord progression that just went back and forth from, let's say, A minor to E7, and so I'm going to use A in the bass and E7 and E in the bass. My first voicing of an A minor chord would be to play an E on the 1st string, a C on the 2nd string, and an A on the 3rd string. Your standard fingering for A minor would give you this set of notes, but I'm not going to play anything on the 4th string, so I'm just going to play that. Now I need notes out of an E7 chord, and what I'm going to do is work my way up the neck to the first note that's in E7 on the first string, but I'm going to go higher from one chord to the next until I get to the next chord. So the notes I need for my E7 chord are an E in the bass, then I need a G sharp, a B, and a D. So the first note I would get to on the first string that is higher than this E, and part of the E7 chord would be G sharp. So while I've got that G sharp on there, I now need to look for a B and a D on the second and third strings, and I'm going to come up with something that sounds like this. Now I need notes out of an A minor chord again, which are A, C, and E. So I'm going to go up to the next note on the first string that is higher than G sharp, and that would be A. Then I have to find a C and an E on the second and third strings. It's going to work out to be something like this. Then I need the notes of an E7 chord again, which are E, we don't care about it, it's in the bass, G sharp, B, and D. Well, the next note higher than the A here, that is part of an E7 chord, is a B, 7th fret. So then I have to let that B be there, and the other notes I'm now looking for are a G sharp and a D, and I end up with this. My next A minor voicing would have a C higher than this, so I go up to C at the 8th fret, and now I'm looking for notes on the next two strings that would complement A, that would be part of either A, C, or E. I end up with this. Now I'm looking for an E7. I might end up with something like this. Whoa, I gotta look while I do that. I need another A minor. I might find something like this at the 12th fret that is a whole octave above what I did back here. If I want to keep going, I'm going to end up with notes all the way up to G sharp. That would be the, I can't even count these frets, 16th fret. And my last A minor would be 3 notes at the 17th fret. So you might have something like this. Now, if you're a Target member, or if you have access to my lesson on playing lead with triads, that would be a good thing to consult as well. They'll have a lot of hints as to what was just going on there. But that's what we're trying to do, and then you need to listen to the song and try to get the same texture of what's happening with this that turns into this. Got it? Okay. I think that's enough hints. So as this week goes on, because it'll be at least a week before I post the next segment of this, where I do tell you what the formulas are for the chords, in case you don't know them, and then look at some of the possibilities of playing them. So that's what's coming up next. But this is the Fool on the Hill project, and it is, again, designed to have you take a piano song and transfer or transcribe it into a guitar song, and in this particular case, the key that they're in works well on the guitar. Many times a piano song has to be done in a different key for it to take advantage of things like open bass strings. If this song were in the key of B flat rather than D, we would think first of all about transposing it to another key where the chords are more guitar friendly. But in this case, this works really well. Okay, that's it for the exposition, I guess, of the project. Work on it for a little while and check back in a week, unless of course you're watching this way after the time it went up, in which case you can check back really whenever you want. But I really encourage you to work on it first before you look at the next segment, because in each one I'm going to kind of give you some more, show you where some of the rocks to step on in this creek are. So, okay. I hope this works out, and I hope everybody has fun. I just decided I want to try something different. Welcome to the Fool on the Hill project.